Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to point out for clarification on this George Hayduke, who had signed the letter. Remember, fictional character from a book called the Monkey Wrench Gang, an environmental activist. It had been if it had been signed by Johnny Appleseed or Paul Bunyan. So it's not an individual. She typed it and sent it, and you can describe whether you think it's a warning or a threat. The PS is, you bastards go in there and a lot of people could get hurt. I view that as a threat. And the person who apparently gave her the letter to type, John Barrasso, was interviewed last week by E&E News, to which he said she knew about it far in advance, a couple of months before we headed out to spike the trees, and she had agreed to mail the letter well in advance. So that, to me, is the threatening letter. But, Mr. Chairman, we've heard a lot today about how completely disqualified Tracy Stone-Manning is to run the Bureau of Land Management. As you've heard from so many of our members, this is a critically important agency, especially for those of us from Western states. People from the East Coast don't know what Bureau of Land Management is because it isn't applying here in the East. It manages almost 1/8 of the land mass of the United States. The Bureau of Land Management is responsible for more than 18 million acres of land in my home state of Wyoming. It's more land than the entire state of West Virginia is under the control of the federal government in Wyoming. And it's not just like that in my state. The agency manages over 12 million acres of public land in Arizona, 48 million acres of public land in Nevada, 8 million acres of public land in Colorado, 8 million acres in Montana. We have it in Utah, Alaska, all around. It's like this in so many of our states. This agency is also responsible for hundreds of millions of acres of mineral land below the surface, and it is critical to America's energy independence. Included in the land it manages is almost 65 million acres of federal forests. And as we have heard, Tracy Stone-Manning helped plan this tree spiking. She sent the letter, the threatening letter, to the U.S. Forest Service. She did not cooperate with federal investigators, only testified when she received immunity, and lied to our committee about it. We've heard about the organizations that support her. Well, the Dallas Safari Club and the Houston Safari Club, which each represent thousands of outdoorsmen and women, they've reversed their support, and now they publicly oppose her nomination. This isn't just about groups that work with the agency or even the people who enjoy our public lands. It's about all the employees of the Bureau of Land Management. How can the men and women who work at this important agency respect Tracy Stone-Manning knowing she threatened their colleagues at the U.S. Forest Service? President Obama's head of the BLM agrees and now opposes her nomination. It's not clear her radical views have changed. And I say that because in 2018, in an article about Western wildfires, and we've had debates in this committee of what we can do to prevent Western wildfires, her husband had some thoughts. Her husband in 2018, he's Richard Manning, he wrote in Harper's that firefighters should let homes built in forests burn. He said, "There's a rude and satisfying justice," he writes, "in burning down the house of someone who builds in the forest." Now, Ms. Stone-Manning cannot be held fully responsible for the views of her husband or can't be held responsible for those things. But last September, she endorsed them by calling, in a tweet, she called her husband's comments of "there's a rude and satisfying justice of allowing homes to burn down, a clarion call." This isn't 30 years ago. This was 10 months ago. Tracy Stone-Manning endorsed her husband's call to action that homes in our forests should be allowed to burn. We cannot let her lead an agency responsible for fighting forest fires on federal lands. In closing, Mr. Chairman, President Biden has made the threat of domestic terrorism a focus of his administration, talked about it again yesterday. His National Security Council recently released a strategy to address domestic terrorism, which specifically includes the threat of domestic environmental terrorists. This is President Biden. How can we confirm someone who admitted to conspiring with terrorists? Each of the senators on this committee needs to consider carefully if they want their names associated with Tracy Stone-Manning. All 10 Republicans on this committee have asked President Biden to withdraw his nomination. Tracy Stone-Manning should never be director of the Bureau of Land Management. The Senate must reject the nomination. I strongly oppose her nomination and urge each of you to do the same. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.